Patti Maguire Armstrong in North Dakota, and she's going to talk about her newest book, co-authored with Roxanne Beauclair Salonen. I meant to get the pronunciation. Thanks so much for being with us today, Patti.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on, and you got the pronunciation perfect, Bonnie. Good job.
Thanks. Well, I was really concerned because, your book, What Would Monica Do? I love it. I love the title. But I wanted to start with the basic of which Monica you were referring to, because, of course, there's a couple of Monicas in the news. Tell us, why would we want to know what Monica would do?
Well, my co-author and I wanted to know what Monica would do, Saint Monica, the mother of Saint Augustine, because I have 10 kids, Roxanne has 5, and we thought everything was going really well, and it was for a while. But we don't always have the final word on what our children decide to do. And so some, not all, some have left the faith, are no longer going to church. And when you give your all to the faith, it's a heartbreak. It's a burden. And we wanted to know, St. Monica is our go-to saint for a lot of parents who are praying for their children, because she prayed for St. Augustine for 17 years. And he didn't just convert, he converted in a way that has impacted all of Christianity for 1600 centuries, for 1600 years, I should say, 16 centuries, because his books are still in bookstores today. He became one of the most well-known theologians in the Catholic Church. So, and her life isn't so different from ours. You would think somebody who lived in the year 400, we couldn't really relate to. But in reality, her son was bright. He went away to school. He got into some new age type of religion. He came back with a girlfriend and a child out of wedlock. So what's a mother to do? She turned to God, and that's really what our book is about. We check in with Saint Monica throughout the chapters, but we cover everything from relationships to forgiveness, anger, and just going deeper in our own faith and what we can do as parents when our children are no longer in the faith.
And we talked about this. All families are impacted by someone close leaving the faith. And if you could talk a little bit more, you mentioned St. Monica's prayer and how that affected long-term the plans of St. Augustine, but maybe some of the things besides that as well that we could emulate as we pray and try to encourage people to come back to the faith.
Well, the book is big on community. In the book itself, we have many stories with other parents, some very inspirational stories, like Father Don Calloway, who I had written about in a previous book, and his mother. I'm the only one that ever got an interview with Lachita. And so she shares what it was like having her son so far away from a faith that she now is holding dear to. And so we talk about surrender a lot, because basically the conversations at some point are over. We need to just surrender our children to God, let go of our own burdens. A lot of times parents feel guilty or responsible. And if we have anything we do feel guilty about, go to confession, but lay it on God's heart and let him, he's the one who is going to do, to reach out to our kids. We can't do it in a conversation. So we do talk a lot about surrender. We talk about the state of the church today, and just the state of the world today, because you can feel overwhelmed and feel like you have to fix everything and you have to figure out how this is all going to happen. But like I said, it really is about surrender and talking, like Saint Ambrose said to Saint Monica at one point, to talk less to your son about God and talk more to God about your son.
Oh, that's beautifully said. That may be the answer to our next question here. Earlier in the show, we talked about school resuming, kids going off or for their first time or maybe a follow-up year at college. How can we prepare them to prevent abandoning the faith while they're away from us?
Just having conversations, I say do it carefully and with humility, because I even homeschooled for 19 years, then we sent our kids to Catholic school, and I mean, I have two daughters who had three priests come celebrating their weddings, and then you've got somebody else who doesn't go to church and, doesn't even believe in God. So, um, I you end up with everything under the sun that you can't control. But just to be aware, to do everything that you can, not to pull back and go, well, it doesn't matter anyways. It does matter. Everything we do matters because we want to bring our children to God. And we need to bring God to them by bringing them to church, by explaining the teachings and living a faithful life ourselves so we can always stand by what we teach. But don't ever think, like I did, this isn't going to happen to my kids. I'm going to make sure it's not going to happen. Talk to them about it. You can look, talk to people you know. There's a lot of people in Catholic media whose kids have fallen away, and some who've come back. We've got some stories where they have come back and they did pray for them. But just to remain humble and let their kids know that unless you keep a strong prayer life, unless you continue to go forward, it's going to be easy to slip away and start to rationalize, well, this isn't a big deal. And then you end up in a very different place than where you started.
Yeah. Well, great advice, great issue to address. And as St. Monica stuck it through, and what great results through St. Augustine. And there's always hope, as you say, for kids to return home. So how can viewers purchase a copy of the book?
You can go to Ascension Press. It's released on August 27th, the Feast of Saint Monica, which is the date we finished the manuscript without even trying.
Wow.
We had deadlines come and go. And when we finished, we looked at the calendar, and it was the Feast of Saint Monica. So she's been with us through this, and you can order it through Ascension Press. What would Monica do?
Wow.
That's great.
That's great. Thanks so much, Patti, for being with us. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you both, Kevin and Bonnie. I appreciate being on.